Good afternoon. How has everyone been these past few years? Good, so-so. Well, if you're anything like me, you are probably exhausted from all of the labor, emotional and otherwise, the work that you've been putting in since the start of the pandemic. A recent study found that educators are experiencing higher levels of burnout than any other industry. Any other industry. There is a lot of emotional labor that goes into the work that we do every single day. But sometimes it's hard to forget, or easy to forget, that this impacts our students. I recently had a student who needed help registering for classes. Brand new student, coming after years of being out of school. She had reached out to a staff member for help. This particular staff member this day told her to review a video first. Now keep in mind, it's been a long time for her. The first emotion that she felt was fear. Then she felt hurt and unsupported by this staff member. Why? Because all she wanted was for someone to talk to her, walk her through it step by step. She didn't feel heard, and she quickly let us know. In good old student fashion, she sent emails, CC'd everybody, okay, made phone calls. About our refusal to help, she threatened to go to the press, and then our favorite, I'm gonna call the president, right? So it would have been very easy for me to get defensive, but instead, I woosad, and I approached her with compassion. Her frustration was just a symptom of something bigger, and I knew that I had to dig deeper. The issue at its core was she was scared. She didn't know how to access the tools. And to her, it seemed as if this particular staff member just could not be bothered with her. Ultimately, all she needed was compassion and empathy, and it was my job to help her. Now, I want to clarify something that I've learned. Prior to my career in higher education, I had another career. I was a social worker. And I wouldn't be the employee, advisor, administrator that I am today without that background. I was trained to be empathetic, and remember that there are things about our students that go on that we can't see. But the problem is, when you have 100, 200 students that all have the same need at the same time, it's a lot of work, and it creates burnout. These situations, they call for a lot of empathy, a lot of emotional work, but guess what? Sometimes we don't have it. We don't have it to give. I do want to stress that empathy fatigue is normal. Everybody got a story. Let's just get it done, right? But there's a solution, and it's called compassion. Compassion is the ability to connect with and show concern for someone else's suffering. And studies have found that compassion is an essential factor linked to our health and well-being. When we move through our higher education experiences with compassion for others and self-compassion, we create a healthy space for learning and growth. It's something that I've had to find my way back to, and we all have to find our way back to, for the sake of both ourselves and others. I currently serve as the Acting Assistant Vice President of Student Success at the University of the District of Columbia. In my role, I find ways to meet students where they are, and advise. I do advise too. I help them work through their needs and any issues that they're facing, and I found that in order to be successful, it is essential that I show up and bring a sense of compassion to the table every single day, no matter what I have going on. So let's talk about compassion in two ways, one to ourselves and then to our students. We have to have self-compassion for ourselves before we can have compassion for others. And self-compassion is the act of being gentle, kind, and understanding of yourself while accepting that you are not perfect. It drives us to look for the learning and growth potential in each mistake that we make. And to elevate our self-compassion, we have to do what's hardest, and that's turn the mirror on ourselves. That is probably one of the most painful but most courageous things that you could do for yourself. And I would know. So years ago, decades ago in my younger years, I was working with an event with my boss, and we both made a few mistakes. After the event, her feedback to me was that she didn't feel comfortable recommending me for tenure. Staff members at this institution got tenure. The first thing I thought was, that's hurtful. And then I felt scared, and then I felt embarrassed. I don't make mistakes, right? So instead of turning the mirror on myself, I decided to complain for the next year about everything that she did wrong and what she needed to change about herself. And I complained about the fact that she just did not support me. In my eyes, she had completely failed me, but really my feelings were hurt, and I was scared. You literally said, I don't feel comfortable recommending you for tenure. That means I want to fire you, right? So eventually I realized after a year, I did not like how I felt. I was miserable, I was scared going to work every day. And so I said, I have to do something about this. I have to heal, and I need to feel safe in my work environment. So I asked her for a one-on-one, and I went to her. Nobody wants to feel like they failed, right? So I had the devil on one side saying, she made mistakes. It wasn't all you. And then I had the angel on the other side saying, Latosha, you made a mistake. It's okay. So what are you going to do about it? I swallowed my pride. I had my meeting, and I led with this. I said, listen, I know I broke your trust. What can I do to build it back? In the end, I never received an answer, but I received something bigger and more valuable for myself. I learned how to trust and forgive myself, even in the face of failure, and I'm a better employee for it. As educators, we can't feel good and be good for our students if we are not good to ourselves. And one of the ways that I do this is by filling my bucket. I focus on filling my bucket with self-care. And I mean, of course, I get my hair done, my nails done, my feet done. There's no harm in that. But I feed my spirit. I listen to audiobooks, self-help books. I read articles. I go to therapy twice a week. I promise I'm not crazy. But I also rely on my support system. I have a strong support system. We all need people to have our backs. We need them. We need people who will listen to us and who will talk it through out loud with us when shit go wrong. Okay? We all work in higher ed, right? We know. Practicing self-compassion allowed me to reclaim my peace and my power. I know if I can't do that for myself, how am I going to do it for my staff or my students? So let's talk about leading with compassion with students. So years ago, again, in my social work days, I worked for a company in Memphis, and our mantra was, you do whatever it takes to make a family successful. They took that to like an extra mile. But I use that in higher education now, with boundaries, of course. I still do whatever it takes to help my students be as prepared as possible. Regardless of the question that a student has for me, my policy in our area is, let your office be the last stop for a student. Don't send them all around this place, okay? If you don't know, find the answer. To do that, you have to lead with compassion. Our students, like most, they're vulnerable, they're anxious, and we have to meet them where they are, and we have to make things accessible to them. The University of DC is an all-access focused school, four-year HBCU with the community college location, and we're in the heart of the nation's capital. During my time here, I've seen students with expansive support systems, and I've seen students with no support system. They have no idea what this higher education journey looks like. Of course, our current focus, as yours is too, is retention. Get the students to come back semester after semester to graduate. We have a high-need student body, and we're constantly trying to figure out what do they need, how do we triage, how do we support them. However, our understanding is limited. Sometimes students don't report, they don't share out. So we do our best to dig deep and learn how we can better meet the needs, especially from the ones that we don't hear from. But at the end of the day, our goal is to show up and meet our students where they are, that's driven by compassion. In an effort to do so, we've transitioned from a traditional advising approach to more of case management. We approach our students in their unique circumstances with the mindset of social workers. We've also increased our communications, and I have increased my focus group initiatives, with pizza, of course. In this setting, we dig deep into what they need, while remembering that they do not represent the whole. But the biggest thing for me is, with compassion, we listen with intent, but I'm also very curious about who's sitting across from me. I don't get a chance to be defensive. Instead, I have to get to the root of their story. I had to navigate this recently with the student I mentioned before. A little bit more about her. She was older than a lot of our students. She came into the orientation with her guard up, a little, high-strung. People labeled her as aggressive. But guess what? That wasn't the issue. She was scared. But there was more to her than that. She came on stage during orientation this summer, and she said just like this, "Listen, I'm 53 years old. I've been through so many things. I've been divorced. I was homeless. But I need you guys to help support me while I'm here." Now, keep in mind, she's 53. She's talking to her 18, 19-year-old counterparts, telling them that she's vulnerable and she needs them. It was a beautiful moment. We had an honest conversation about my goals with her, and I said, "Listen, I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to feel safe, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that you're successful while you're here at UDC." I had to reach deep within myself to show her the same compassion I would want if I was scared like her. I gave her my number, and I told her to call me anytime, which she did use anytime, okay? And of course, I was there to support her. But I never would have been able to do that if I didn't have compassion. And to see what she needed, I put that at the forefront. But here's the thing, you can't just listen with intent. You have to be ready to act. We have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do with the information that's given to us, okay? I've always believed that if you promise to help, you have to promise to deliver. Word is bond, right? It's our responsibility to be in tune with our values and how we show up every day, regardless of a student's behavior or emotions, okay? I know how hard it is to find kindness in 2022, but when we move through our days with compassion, we're able to give not only ourselves, but our students the space to grow and navigate life with confidence and kindness. The Dalai Lama once said that there isn't anyone who doesn't appreciate kindness and compassion. And I firmly believe that that is true, even if those showing it don't know it. So I'll leave you all with this. Be courageous, turn inward, fill your bucket, listen with intent, and be ready to act. Thank you.